There is a lot to play for in the final two games of the 2024 season for the 49ers, and I think it's really interesting. Kyle Shanahan just said something yesterday that I think is really telling about what he's looking for in the future season ahead of us, 2025. In this video, we're going to be talking about one of my favorite qualities about this 49ers roster and reacting to the latest news surrounding it. If you're new here, I'm Nate, and if you're looking for daily 49ers content, hit that subscribe button as we are already laser focused on the 2025 season, so make sure you hit that sub so you don't miss out on all of the action. But who are the pillars for the San Francisco 49ers in 2025? If you had to pick, if you had to project, if you had to guess, if it was up to you, it was your decision, who would you choose to be the pillars going into the next season? Because I'm honest with you guys, like, I'm pretty hyped about most of the players, most of the big name players on this team. I think it's really interesting. Let me get into what Kyle Shanahan said, though, because this is fascinating. Tristy Rodriguez from NBC Sports Bay Area covered the interview, Kyle Shanahan's interview yesterday, and this is what Kyle said. I think it's always important. You don't say a standard. It takes a while to be that standard. And that's from work we've put in over the years and having the right guys who've done that and guys who have battled throughout this year, they get to see every day. Especially when you go through a long season like this, seeing guys like George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa getting back, and Deebo Samuel, like those guys working through all of this, still practicing hard and doing everything they can. That's extremely important. All you are is your life experience, and this is a lot of people's first year, and you need to see things done the right way no matter how your season is going. I love this. I think it's positive, and I'm happy and optimistic about this in general. But I do think it's interesting when you look at the pillars, let's call them, that Kyle Shanahan just mentioned. And this is what really got me thinking about who the pillars are of 2025. These are the guys that Kyle Shanahan shouts out first. George Kittle, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa, those three by themselves, and we'll come to Deebo in a second, but those three by themselves are three guys that have all individually staked their claim in the final games of the season that they're going to play, that they're going to put it all out there. They're going to give their best effort. We're going to find out what this team is made of. That's them, okay? That's the players saying that. So Kyle Shanahan's obviously recognizing that. You throw in there Deebo Samuel, too, who's apparently impressing during practices, during the week, in mentality and conversations behind closed doors, whatever. Plus, of course, the big game against the Miami Dolphins, that does not hurt as well. Deebo Samuel's obviously, in Kyle Shanahan's mind, a big part of what he's talking about in terms of guys who are playing and showing out this season, even if maybe the numbers don't always suggest it for guys like Deebo, who hasn't had his best season. I think this is interesting, and it got me thinking who those pillars are. So comment below who your pillars are going into 2025. Here are some of mine. Starting with George Kittle. I can't even begin anywhere else because George Kittle, I think, embodies everything that the 49ers needed to be this year. If you could just clone George Kittle into a bunch of different positions on the football field, the 49ers would have been better for it because of his mentality, because of his leadership, because of his attitude, because of his work ethic and how well he went out there every single play so far this season. It's incredible, and it shows. I found this really interesting article in the San Francisco Chronicle from Eric Branch, who I thought did an excellent job. You should read the whole article. It's great, but I just took this one excerpt from it that I wanted to read to you. Last year, the 49ers won the NFC title and became the first team in NFL history to have a running back, Christian McCaffrey, two wide receivers, Brandon Aiyuk and Deebo Samuel, and tight end George Kittle, each have at least 1,000 scrimmage yards in a single season. This year, Aiyuk and McCaffrey combined to miss 23 games due to injuries, and Samuel has endured well-documented struggles, leaving only Kittle on pace to duplicate his production from 2023. In fact, he's likely to surpass it, joining tight end royalty. Entering Monday's game against the visiting Lions, Kittle, who had 65 catches for 1,020 yards and 6 touchdowns last year, has 68 catches for 967 yards and 8 scores. With 33 receiving yards against Detroit, he'll collect the fourth 1,000-yard season of his 8-year career and join a decorated quartet. The other tight ends in NFL history with as many 1,000-yard campaigns, Travis Kelce, Tony Gonzalez, Rob Gronkowski, and Jason Witten. So that's tight end royalty that George Kittle is joining. And obviously, and later in the article, he talked about Hall of Fame and some of that stuff. But what I think George Kittle gives the team is so unique. And I think we should see it more, but I think for a long time, I thought George Kittle is just a little bit of a goofball, right? He's kind of a funny dude. He does funny things, sticks his tongue out and then laughs about it. Like, he's a little bit of a goofball. But seeing the Netflix documentary really showed more of an inside scoop. And every single time, to be fair, that he's been mic'd up, you get to see something special about this guy as an encourager to all the guys around him, picking guys up when they have bad games. Like, that's George Kittle, and he's the type of guy that is a culture setter kind of player. And I think the 49ers need to extend him this offseason. Otherwise, he's due to free agency the following offseason. We got one more year left on the contract. I say extend him now, make him a Niner for life, get it done, and let it be over with. Take the advantage that you get if you do a little bit of an extension restructure deal where you can have less of a hit on the next year in terms of salary cap. That's going to give you some space to fill in like the green laws, for example. I'm excited. We'll have to wait and see, guys. I'm excited, though, about George Kittle and what he's been this season, and I'm really hoping he's a tight end. He's going to be a tight end for life. I'm hoping he's a Niner for life. But I also will throw out this other pillar that I think after last season, I think we would have said you really can't overestimate the importance of Dre Greenlaw. And then this season, we've really seen we have underestimated the importance of Dre Greenlaw. He is so important. And it's clear when he did come back and was healthy for a short little bit there that there was a massive impact on this team. He's an engine for this team, and he gives you something from the linebacker core that Fred Warner has been trying to find and cover for all season long by himself on a broken foot. So, yes, I would love to see Dre Greenlaw back. I think that every player is technically replaceable in the NFL, but these are guys that I feel like are pillars for this team going forward. You need to sign that guy, get it done as soon as humanly possible. Fred Warner, I'll throw out as pillar number 3 as well. I think Fred Warner, and not as a less important, I'm just saying all the pillars. It's not more or less important than others, guys. I'm just throwing them out there, but I think that Fred Warner is massively important, and when healthy, at this season, he looked like a defensive player of the year kind of player. I mean, he's just forcing turnovers left and right. And I would love to see a healthy Fred Warner with actual linebacker support from a guy like Dre Greenlaw and see what he could do next season going forward. So obviously we're keeping him around. He's not going anywhere, but I just feel like he's a pillar. He's one of those guys you're building on. Obviously, the team approved this pillar right here, Deommodore Lenoir, who got his 5-year extension. So, yes, I'm seeing Demo as one of those guys, of course, who is also a pillar going forward. And the 49ers put enough money on it to say he's going to be a pillar going forward. And he has been the most, I've told you all season long, he's been the most consistent defensive player for the 49ers this whole season. And I'm a huge, huge, huge Demo fan, and I really believe that he's even found a new level this year. Let's hope he continues to build on that momentum going into the future because he's incredible. Deebo Samuel is an interesting one because it's an interesting little mention he gets from Kyle Shanahan, and I have to remember the history of Deebo because if I use too much recency bias in my mind, I think of Deebo and I'm like, I don't know, man. I don't know. But obviously Kyle is looking from the long term, and he's seeing the ins and outs. He's seeing the practices. He's having the conversations on the sidelines, all that good stuff. So there's something more there, of course. There was a nice long conversation between Kyle Shanahan and Deebo Samuel at practice the other day that was recorded by some journalists. And so it's out there, you know what I mean? It'll be interesting to see what this one is. One of the more debatable ones in that I think a lot of folks really thought we were going to trade him last offseason and already started to kind of get okay with that idea, with that reality of seeing him go, considering he had not really produced at the level he was when we signed him, when he had that all-pro season. That being said, he then regressed a little bit this year, and that made it even harder for 49ers fans. So I think it's really dividing opinion right now, whether or not you keep this guy around. So you let me know what you think in the comments on this one. This is an interesting one. Most of you have already weighed in on it, and it's, as I expected, a lot of folks saying, let him go. Whatever that looks like, trade him, whatever. So we'll have to see. I don't know how much you can get for him. That's a great question, and I think the next 2 games will probably be a determining factor as well in terms of how healthy he looks and how well he plays going forward. And maybe we'll find out later that pneumonia was a lingering effect on his lungs and he wasn't able to play with the same ability, and he's just now getting back. I'm not really sure, but I look forward to seeing what you have to say about that one. These 2 guys, Nick Bosa and Christian McCaffrey, are super important, and they need to get right and stay right. That's the truth. We need both of these guys healthy in order to have a true functioning team the way that we want it to be. Our defense is not good enough without him. Without Nick Bosa. Our offense is not good enough without Christian McCaffrey. I think both of these guys need to be get right, stay right guys, and we're not even thinking about replacements yet. They both still have plenty of miles left in the tires. They should anyway, at a high level. Hopefully one more season of a high-producing play from both of these guys will be in our near future in the 2025 season. We also, of course, can't forget about Brandon Aiyuk, who has been out for so long that it's kind of easy to kind of forget about our WR1, but he got the big money deal. And I think that that's telling in terms of, obviously, like, you know, the market value thing and all that. I get it. Like, it's not as simple as he has a big money deal. But Brandon Aiyuk's clearly important to this football team, important enough to not let him go. And I don't know exactly what happened behind the scenes and how much the trade rumors were real and all of that kind of stuff. We don't really know. I know that they're always open to trades and things like that. So who knows what real deep conversations were happening and how serious they were. But getting Brandon Aiyuk done and over the line and him being a 49er going forward, I'd love to see him return to great form, because I think that Brock Purdy probably misses him more than anybody else at any point this season. He has missed a healthy, in rhythm Brandon Aiyuk. That's what I think. So don't forget about him as well. But let me know who else you're thinking. We're a day away from the Detroit Lions game, and I'm really curious, who your pillars are. And I definitely left some big names off this list because I felt like I'm going to just keep going, and I could probably list, there's a lot of guys, there's a lot of guys. And I think there are other big ones out there. I mean, I did not put Brock Purdy on the list. I think that's one of those ones that I think is a contingent on how the 49ers handle it and how Brock Purdy handles it, to be totally frank. If they can't come to an agreement and they go late into training camp, I'm going to feel differently about the guy. That's just the reality. I like him, but I don't like him like that. And so I think that, if the 49ers get a deal done with Brock Purdy, and it's a long-term deal and we see all of that play out, then I think my gut would be then he's also obviously a pillar. He's a great quarterback. We've seen great stuff from him, but he's also not had the best season this year, understandably. So there's that one there. I also left Trent Williams off that list because I feel like even though I do think he's a pillar, I think he's on his way. He's going to be on his way health-wise, and I just don't think you can count on him being a pillar forever. And I hope we get another great season out of him. I would love to see that, but he's now several seasons in a row having multiple games out with injuries, a lot of them with that ankle. So I'm just concerned a little bit about what we're going to get from him going forward. And so would I drop him? Heck no. I'm keeping Trent Williams as long as he's able to play. But I don't know if you want to consider him a pillar that you build on anymore, because it's probably time to move on and find that next left tackle. On top of that, there are other guys out there. I'm not going to go through the entire list. I didn't even get to a single corner. I mean, I didn't get to a single safety. I mean, I think Hufanga is a good one to consider for sure, keeping around. I would like to see him. It's been nice to have him back healthy finally. So there's a lot there. Let me know what you think in the comments. I very much appreciate it. As always, have a fantastic Sunday.